You're watching Meet the Astronomers on Astraveo.
Hello there. Welcome to Astroveo's Meet the Astronomer series, where we talk about the most interesting parts of astronomy, the people. We're going to meet and greet a whole slew of people doing the actual work in astronomy. We're talking instrument builders, telescope operators, professors, early career scientists, postdoctoral researchers, program managers, and citizen scientists. This is absolutely fascinating for me and Joseph because we get to meet a vast array of people on our travels when we go to telescopes or conferences. We meet people from different cultures who speak different languages, who eat different foods, and sometimes grew up seeing different stars than we did if they lived in the Southern Hemisphere, for instance. So this is a lovely, lovely series. We're going to really get to meet some thoroughly interesting people. We're going to hear some stories that will make you laugh, some that might make you cry, but most of all, they'll make you realize the absolute fascination that the human race has with astronomy and its astronomers. All right, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Astroveo's interview with an astronomer series. We are kicking this series off with a very special guest. It's actually my eldest son, Benjamin. Now, hi, Benjamin. Salut.
Hello.
Now, Benjamin is not a professional astronomer. He's in high school, but he is a citizen scientist, right? He likes the sun and the moon and the stars, just like most of us. And so we thought this would be a really good kickoff to have someone like Benjamin, who's modern generation, like has got lots of different questions to the one I grew up with. So we are going to have a question and answer session with Benjamin, and he's going to talk us through some of the interests he has in science and astronomy. And I will jump in occasionally with the odd embarrassing story because I know Benjamin very well, of course, and I know that he loves science. So Benjamin, would you like to introduce yourself? Over to you.
Hi, my name's Ben, and I've always loved science since I was a little kid. I guess it runs in the family. Um, I don't necessarily want to be an astronomer. I want to be a fighter pilot or possibly a chemist, and I've taken a recent interest in zoology.
Nice.
Um, but I do love the stars, and I do like astronomy. I actually considered it as one of my career paths because of my dad. Um, and yeah, so I'm excited to be here.
Very cool. Well, I'm glad you brought your Chewbacca hair with you. Thank you for that. I'm very impressed.
I'm getting a buzz cut soon because I lost a bet to one of my friends.
Oh, well, that's a good reason to do a buzz cut. It is the sun
It's
of New
too
York.
hot. It's too hot for the long hair.
Yeah, it looks cool, but anyway. All right, well, let's talk some astronomy. So the other day you had some questions that you asked me, and that's how we sort of you came up with the idea of doing this actually. So, what are some of your questions about astronomy that you think either you want to know or that you've had discussions with your friends and colleagues about, and you've said, "Hang on, that's not true. I know my dad's an astronomer."
So my first topic of interest is we all know black holes. I guess the simple way to put it is they suck in matter and don't put it back out. It essentially gets destroyed or vaporized. Um, but what actually creates a black hole?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, we'll talk that through. You used a bit of a funny expression there. You said it sucks in matter. Is it really sucking it in? What's doing the sort of sucking in of the matter?
I don't know.
Uh,
Um, I mean, it's always been portrayed on stuff like sci-fi and TV as this hole that just sucks in everything around it.
yeah.
And
But that, I mean, you know yourself from just everyday life that you need, if you ever have that kind of action, you need something to cause it, right?
it's like a vacuum, I think it is. I don't know.
Well, it was mostly vacuum in space, but what causes us to be sort of sucked towards the Earth?
Gravity.
Yeah, gravity. Well, that's what sort of sucks in that matter. It pulls in the matter due to the attractive force of gravity.
It has a does it have a big gravitational field?
Has a huge gravitational field.
That's
Yeah, that's why. Now it depends on the mass, right? Because that's how gravity is sort of created. Massive mass and just mass creates gravity, and so the more massive the black hole, the more it's able to suck in that matter that you were talking about.
So what happens to the matter inside of it? Does it
Oh, well,
just
that's a really complicated question, and I'm not fully sure we know the answer to that. But you sort of alluded to what we think happens. It does sort of get vaporized, quote unquote, but we think it really turns into just energy, which is what Einstein said, right? He said that E equals mc squared. Energy and matter can be thought of as the same thing. So I think once all that,
you can't create it or destroy it. It can only be transferred.
yeah, excellent, well done. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. So
Which
if
is
your
what the
black
black
hole,
hole is.
exactly, so your black hole is sucking in this material, it's transforming it into energy. And what tends to happen is things like the black hole, it gets hot, it radiates in typically the infrared, in radio, in gamma rays, X-rays. It also spins. It creates all kinds of energy, and it's probably the mass that it's ingesting or sucking in that's causing that.
Does it become bigger as it sucks in other things?
Yes, that's a really good observation. Black holes get bigger the more massive they are, actually. Yeah, that's a great observation.
So the more they suck in, the bigger they get, which does that add on to the gravitational field of it? And it,
Yes. Yeah, no, it's not the size, it's the mass that counts. Now, it does get physically bigger, right? The radius does go
yeah.
up. But you're right, that as the mass goes up, because it's ingesting matter, so even if it's energy, that counts as sort of like a mass because E equals mc squared. So it's then has a bigger gravitational field, so it's able to sort of suck in matter from even farther away. So I
So
think,
it's actually, if assuming that it doesn't go away or die, like it doesn't die out.
well, you're asking the really right questions. I haven't primed you with these questions, which is why I wanted to speak to you. You're asking really intelligent questions. Black holes can sort of evaporate, and they can evaporate by something called Hawking radiation, named after Stephen Hawking, who was a famous astrophysicist.
Yeah.
Now, what he said is black holes can radiate away energy, and if they do that, E equals mc squared. If energy gets radiated away, the mass goes down, so it gets smaller, and then eventually, in theory, they can evaporate out of existence and disappear. So yeah, a good question.
That's interesting. It's I guess it's either if it's in the middle of a bunch of debris, it'll keep going infinitely in either direction. So it'll eventually die or it'll eventually keep growing.
Well, it only keeps growing if there's mass to like stuff
To
to
go
suck
into
in,
it.
yeah, to be gravitationally pulled in. Now, I think your original question was what creates a black hole? It's a
Mhm.
great question. Essentially, it's when massive stars, and they have to be really big. Now, typically, we're
Yeah.
talking 20 times the mass of the sun or more.
Mhm.
When they come to the end of their life and they run out of all the nuclear material to create the star light,
Yeah.
gravity wins. So what happens in a star is, right, you've got radiation light essentially is pushing the outer layers this way, but you've got gravity trying to crunch it up. And what happens is you get a balance, which is why the sun stays about the same size, right? Radiation pressure is pushing it out, gravity's trying to pull it in, it stays about the same size. But in these really massive stars, they blast through their nuclear material really quite quickly. You're probably talking like 10, 12, 15 million years. And then after that, there's no more material to support the fight
The-
against gravity. Gravity then crunches it all up, but it happens really, really quickly.
so it's like instantly.
Yeah, maybe if you're lucky, a couple of hours, but it can be on the order of minutes, so or tens of minutes, where this the huge star, like I said, 20 times the mass of the sun, basically collapses in on itself.
And
Um,
just compresses.
it compresses massively, and the central object, which could be a white dwarf for the sun, it could be a
Mhm.
neutron star for a slightly bigger star, but for really big stars like 20 solar masses or more, not even gravity can stop it collapsing in on itself, and it becomes a black hole.
In a way, I was kind of thinking, humans are kind of like black holes in their own little.
How's
They're
that?
not all humans. That's not fair to say all humans, but some humans who are very greedy um just stuck in and they give nothing back.
Well, unfortunately, that's true. Some people do, though. I mean, the ex-Mrs. Gates, for instance, she gives an awful lot of money to philanthropic organizations. She gives billions of dollars of her own money away each year to really good causes like education and medicine and research. So not all Humans do that.
Yeah. It's just interesting to think about that. Like, I mean, and I know it's off the topic of astronomy for just a second. It's still technically scientific, but I think humans are going to be the thing that makes humans go extinct is going to be humans.
Yeah, that could well be true. Don't forget, we're the only species on the planet capable of self-extinction.
That's true.
Yeah, so we could take ourselves out with, maybe a nuclear disaster or bacterial warfare or developing AI, so like
Yeah.
the Terminator movies.
Something like iRobot, where
Yeah.
the robots become sentient and just destroy all of humanity.
Well, but the sentient robot in iRobot he turned out to be good, right?
Well, he was good, but he ended up having feelings, so he was still he still had anger when something made him angry.
That's
He would
true.
he would punch it, but the difference is instead of our human bones, which are still strong and resilient, are being hit with pure what was it? Titanium?
It's something like
Yeah.
titanium, yeah, or some alloy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. That's the real difficulty in the chemical makeup of humans and like a lot of biological systems, right? When we work well, the human body is phenomenal, but when it's slightly off or the chemistry isn't quite right, we can do very dangerous things to one another.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it's also there's always going to be at least one person in the world that's overcome by self-ambition or greed, and it's gonna like take Trump for example. I'm sure like a bunch of your viewers are Trump fans, and this is like I'm not trying to start politics, but he's to be honest, he's a greedy human. He thinks only of himself, and
that's true, but I mean, yeah, we should stay away from politics. But yeah, Trump is a complicated character, but a lot of politicians are. Now, you and I grew up, of course, with you and I would watch a lot of movies together, and when we had dinner in front of the TV, we'd watch a
yeah,
lot of Star Wars. We see that in everyday life there's good and evil, and sometimes, even with people like Anakin Skywalker, it's very difficult sometimes to understand why he was so upset or why he did things. That could be the
there's
same
good and
politician.
evil, and there's good and evil. There's humans are capable of good and evil. There's like a lot of in movies there's terminology of that's a bad guy, that's a good guy. But even say World War II, Holocaust, absolutely awful. But maybe the Axis thought we were the bad guys and we thought they were the bad guys. So it's you can't quite get everyone's perspective and
That's true. Yep.
watch
There's
it.
a, there's a really nice expression that says one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. So it depends on your point of view. So sometimes you think you're fighting for the right thing, and other times people think, why are you fighting against me? So it's about perspective, right? Now, that's the beauty of science, in fact. And let's go back to astronomy a wee bit, or even science, is that you don't have to believe in the science for it still to be true. So
Mm-hmm.
you could say, for instance, I don't believe your theories about gravity and flight. Well, you don't have to
But
believe
it's still
them,
true.
but it's still true, right? We know that gravity works and powered flight works. It doesn't matter whether you believe aeroplanes work or not, they do work. And the beauty about science is you don't have to get into a religious discussion or a political discussion or a
It's
he said,
all
she
based
said.
on facts. It's
Yes.
you always have something to fall back and believe in.
Well, it's not even really a belief system, it's a proof system, right? Because you can say
Yeah.
1 + 1 is 2, 1 - 1 is 0. Once you start with that foundation, and you and I used to do this when we did mathematics homework together, it's as long as you build on the foundation, you can get up to really complicated things like calculus and black holes. But the basis is that fundamental of 1 + 1 = 2.
It always goes back to the basics of anything you do. Riding any motocross stars that do all their show biking and all that, it always goes back to the first time you learned how to ride a bike.
That's right,
It's
foundational.
all about the balance in your system, learning how to not fall off that bike.
That's right. Absolutely. Again, it's not a belief system. You have to learn the rules, right, and have the foundational knowledge there. So that's
Same
good.
with science. There's always fundamentals, and like the food chain, there's the can't remember I can't remember what the lowest level's called. It's like the trees, the plants, they give herbivores eat those, gain energy, which carnivores can then eat the herbivores and gain energy, and then the decomposers can eat whatever. So it's all a cycle. That's why there has to be balance.
Absolutely. Well, we see that's perfect. Well, we just talked about that with the high mass star producing a black hole. You have that balance of gravity trying to crunch the star up,
And the put away.
radiation pressure pushing the outer envelope away. Well, the balance of that gives you a stable star, which is what we have in our sun, for instance.
And if something off puts that balance, then the results can be catastrophic.
Catastrophic, right? There's a lot of energy out there in the universe. Now, you asked me a really interesting question yesterday, so let's. I do like your analogy there. You went from religion to politics to back to science to fundamentals. That was really nice. You really brought your sort of educational knowledge together there. Good job.
Mhm.
You asked me yesterday about when the sun will the sun blow up? Now, you told me that what did some of your friends, if you ask your friends, will the sun blow up? What do you think they would say?
Well, a lot of them, because the sun's a star, I think everyone in science can agree in that.
It
The
is a
sun's a
star.
star, and stars when they come to the end of their time, they're not living, but when they come to the end of their time, um,
Let me just interrupt you there. Sorry. When you say come to the end of their time, what do you mean by that?
well, don't they lose their radiation? And
Yes. What causes that? What's their fuel? What's the sort of food for stars?
is it other stars? As in like stardust that has come from another star to fuel that mass?
Oh, I see. That's a really good answer. If for young stars, that's probably true. There's definitely some old stardust in there. But like our sun, what's powering the radiation in the sun? Why does it give off heat and light?
I don't know.
What's the central engine?
Well, like nuclear energy?
Yeah, it's nuclear energy, right? It's protons, it's hydrogen atoms, or the nucleus at least, fusing together. And we know
Mhm.
again, it's MC squared. You get a little bit of mass loss, and that converts into energy, and that happens.
It
Now,
goes, yeah.
excuse me, that's happening billions upon billions upon billions of times a second.
And
So
a lot of my friends, they say that a lot of stars, once they lose all that radiation and nuclear, all its energy, basically, they say that the sun will go into a supernova.
is that
But
true?
I don't believe it to be true because it's not a classical star. I think that the way the sun works, well, it's a star. There's no really classic star, but
Well, I was just thinking that, right?
it's not like the North Star. It's not like the North Star. It's the thing that kind of essentially powers our solar system.
Yep,
Is it
it's just a
and
star.
I think it'll just eventually lose all its radiation, and once that happens, I think that it'll take a few minutes because light from the sun travels from I think 7 minutes to get to Earth,
8.3.
8.3 minutes.
So hang on, let's clear a few things up here. We start to stray into the realm of not less scientific things here. So you're quite right. 8.3 minutes for light from the surface of the sun to reach us. But how long do you think it takes for the energy given off by the nuclear reactions in the core to reach the surface of the sun?
I mean, the sun's pretty big.
It is big.
I don't know. I mean, he can travel quickly.
Yeah, it's not really heat that's doing it, it's radiation.
Well, yeah, but I don't know how long it takes. Does anyone know how long it takes?
We astronomers, at least we have mathematical models that suggest that we model how the sun works, and those models give us numbers that suggest how long it takes for the radiation to get out. Do you know approximately what it is?
I
Ah,
do not.
okay, so that's a perfect answer. I love I don't know because that means that you're not sort of you're willing to admit that there's things to learn. Brilliant. So let's play the order of magnitude game. Is it a minute?
Probably not. No,
Is it a day?
most likely not.
Is it a year?
It could be, but.
Could be. Is it 10,000 years?
We don't know.
Well, like I said, our stellar models tell us it's about 1 million years. So the light,
For the energy to keep transferring.
yeah, it's a transfer problem. So when you get nuclear fusion in the core, the protons smashing together, it releases a photon of energy. And then what happens is it can't just go straight to the surface of the star. The densities are so high, it bumps into another proton, then another one. And so the photon keeps bouncing around, depositing its
So
energy.
it slowly keeps depositing,
Yeah,
and then it takes a while for all those other ones to go, and then
correct. Correct. And that's we think it's about 1 million years. Our mathematical models suggest it's about 1 million years. So the light you and I are seeing today, like right now, well, for me and you in Gloucester, it's dark, right? But that's a
yeah.
couple of hours ago. It took 1 million years for the photon to get from the center of the sun to the outside, the surface, and then an extra 8.3 minutes to get here.
So back to the original question. So I don't think it'll explode or go through the process of a supernova, and plural supernovae,
Nice.
but I don't think it'll go through the process of a supernova. I think it'll just eventually lose all its energy, radiation, blah blah blah, and I think would our planet just float off into? Well, actually, wouldn't it just consume our planet?
Well, that's a good observation. It will probably just consume our planet. So the thing with supernovae, plural, like you rightly said, thank you, is we have different stages of stellar evolution, the end point, the death point of stars. We already talked about high mass stars, like 20 solar masses, 20 masses of the sun or more, will be a black hole. Probably a bit less than that, actually. In that range of about 3 or 4 masses of the sun, up to about, again, 15, 20 solar masses, the sun, that star would become a supernova. And a supernova essentially is it blows off the outer layers, and you're left with either a white dwarf or a neutron star. That's how those are formed.
And
Now,
the white dwarf. We have any white dwarfs in our solar system?
no, not yet. But the sun will become a white dwarf one day because it's not very massive. So the less massive stars, what will happen to them is eventually they'll become a white dwarf, which is this very, very small remnant of a star. They can be hundreds of thousands of degrees hot when they're formed, and then they cool over time. But what will happen to our sun is it'll use its radiation, its nuclear fuel. It'll take about 5 billion years more to do that. So the human race will not exist in its present
Well,
form.
yeah, we'll probably force us, like we said, we'll probably end up forcing ourselves into extinction.
Yeah, we will either self-extinct or AI will do it for us, or we'll terraform some other planet like Mars
Yeah.
or some other star or planet orbiting another star. But what will happen is the outer layers, as the sun runs out of nuclear fuel, the outer layers it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. It'll puff up, and the outer layers will cool down. So it will become what we call a red giant. Giant because it's very big. Red because the
But
temperature is
because of
going
the
down.
yeah,
Uh,
kind of like how if you heat a piece of metal, it turns red and then it starts to get darker red as it gets cooler.
yes, right. So the sun right now is about yellowy green, and
Yeah.
it's about 5,500 degrees Kelvin at the surface. If it turns into a red giant, the outer temperature will be about 3,000 Kelvin. It will drop about 2,500 degrees Kelvin. So it will become redder, which is lower energy.
Which is significantly cooler than what it.
Yeah, it's nearly half. And what will
Yeah.
happen then is that the red giant, well, as it expands, it will engulf the orbit of Mercury, the orbit of Venus, and probably the Earth, maybe even Mars.
Mars.
So what will happen is the inner solar system will cease to exist, and then the outer layers will just drift off out into space, and there'll be a white dwarf left. So unfortunately, we just won't exist anymore.
So, and I mean, we don't necessarily know that. That's just my like prediction that I've made for myself is that we'll end up going extinct while we're still here on Earth, but we don't know what technology is going to be like. We could eventually go out farther than just Mars, and
That's
we
true.
could
Yeah.
we could I don't know, we could survive on many different other planets. We don't know, but
Yeah, it's
um,
possible. Now think of this, right?
so
We think of this as apes, right? We evolved from great apes. We probably came as humans or hominids. We probably came down from the trees in Africa maybe about 6, 7 million years ago, roughly. Evolved through multiple different stages of hominids, and eventually now we're Homo sapiens, right? And we've been around.
Homo sapiens sapiens now,
Homo sapiens sapiens, quite right. So we've
which
been.
I believe means smart man.
Uh,
Sapiens is man. I don't.
no, sapien is intelligent, or I think it's intelligent or thinking.
Or sorry, Homo is man.
I think it from hominid. Yeah, it's man-like.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
I thought Homo was man.
No, homo normally means the same. It's Greek root. Uh, I think in this case, the homo part of it is for hominids.
Yeah, so it's I think so. Either way, it's Homo sapiens
Yeah,
sapiens.
we're Homo sapiens sapiens, but we've only been around maybe in our present form 30, 40, 50,000 years, maybe a little bit more, maybe 100,000-ish. Dinosaurs, so we as a species, we've been around not very long at all. The dinosaurs were around maybe 250 odd million years in various forms, right? There were various,
Period.
various
The
periods.
Cretaceous.
The
I don't know the
Cretaceous,
order, but I think it's the Cretaceous, Jurassic, and what was the other one?
Triassic.
Triassic. Thank you.
Yeah.
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 Um,
But that
and
lasted hundreds of millions of years. We, in our present form, we've only been around maybe 50, 100, 50,000, 100,000 years, so not very long at all. So imagine where we'll be in, say, a million years, even 2 million years. Our species is going to change and evolve in all kinds of ways. So I think we don't have to worry about the sun in 5 billion years. I think we're fine.
I mean, we're gonna be there's scientists are starting to study toes actually, and a lot of people are grossed out by feet, and some people have the feet. You know what? Mature audience, there's a foot fetish, whereas you're attracted to feet.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that that's it's its own thing, but the essential reason for feet is to be able to travel, and toes they think that the humans are going to evolve past needing toes because toes were originally we originally evolved with toes to be able to walk with balance.
Well, hang on. That's an interesting question. But what about tree dwelling primates? Why do they have toes?
That's true. It might also have something to do with the grip on the trees.
So yeah, that's exactly it. It's. I think we originally the toes there were for gripping tree branches.
And toes do help a little bit with balance, but now that we're not now that we're not in the trees anymore and we don't have anything to grip onto with our feet, scientists think that toes might be out of the equation in a few hundred years.
That could be. It might take more than a few hundred years, but yeah, it could be along those lines. But next time you walk, have a think about how your foot interacts. One of the ways we actually we push forward is with our toes gripping the surface and propelling us forward. We still use our toes quite a lot, actually.
But it also has more to do with the bone under, so your toes are here and then
Mhm.
there's that little area right here. A lot of the time you push off with this area and the toes are kind of just standing there.
Yeah, I'm sitting down, so I'd have to think it through. That could be the subject of the biosystem could be the subject of our next podcast. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Same
to be
with
honest,
the evolution for male nipples because males don't need them. So scientists think that they're
well, that's not. I don't think that was an evolution point of view. I think what happens is when the zygote is formed, all zygotes are XX.
XX, yeah.
The nipples on the human chest are formed before the XY becomes X, the XX becomes XY to produce
Yeah.
males. I think
And
that's
for and you, I don't know if you've covered it yet in your thing for the community watching. XX chromosomes means you're a female. XY chromosomes, like me and my father, means you're a male.
yes, but that's a good observation. Don't forget though, the astronomy podcast that Joseph and I do regularly, and the various education videos that we do, we tend to concentrate on mathematics and physics and astronomy. We don't do that much biology, even though it's very interesting. And I think part of it is that just we're not experts at it. Now, that's not to say we can't have the conversation like we're having now, and that's why I like talking to you, because you've always had a good mind to talk about these things.
I think we should have our own little. Not that I'm going to be a regular on the podcast. I'm just saying, like, I mean, I'd like to be.
You can be. You can be.
Um, I mean, we'll see what the comments are on the YouTube videos first.
People will, well, people may
Um,
be preferring you to me and Joseph. Who knows?
well, Joseph's a cool guy.
Yes,
I don't know about you. You can get out of here.
all right, thanks very much. Yeah, Joseph's a
Cool.
super cool guy. I agree. He's got a bushy beard. Well, I like telling the story, just to keep on science for a second. I've got about 5 minutes left of the podcast here. Is I remember when you were young, I tell this story often, but I always knew you were going to be a good thinker, even though, you don't always apply yourself as well as you could in school, but we can talk about that offline. You used to sit on my knee when we lived in Chile, and the observatory behind me here is, you've actually visited this observatory. This is Cerro Tololo in just near La
It's in
Serena.
where is it? Is that in?
It's near La Serena in Chile, where we used to live. And
That doesn't look like the one that I used to go to with you.
Yep, it is. It's the exact one. Yep, this is the 1 meter dome. This is the 1.5 meter dome, I think. If I'm looking at it.
I remember. What was the chef there? He was a super cool guy. He was always great with us.
Yeah, Sergio, a super nice guy. He used to give you the chef hats that you wore.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's a good friend of mine. Very, very good chef. A very good pastry chef, actually.
He was he made some. I remember ever since I had one of his cannolis, I fell in love with cannolis. I can't tell, maybe because it's at night, because I never visited you at night, but I remember it being a lot more red. It was because it's in the desert.
Correct. So the red rock on the red earth is, you're right, it's quite red. It's high up in the Andes. You're right, this was taken at night, even though it looks illuminated, it's moonlight, so you can't see the ground. But you're right, the rocks on the dirt was red.
Yeah, I remember because it was I don't know if it's a different thing, but it's a desert. I remember seeing. I mean, there were cacti and
Oh yeah,
whole crap ton of other things. And I remember visiting you, and I remember you and I found that it was like this big. It was massive. It was a black scorpion. I don't know what species of scorpion, but it was actually it was sitting in your hard hat. It was sitting in your hard hat.
Yep. I remember that. So this observatory in Cerro Tololo near La Serena, it's on the southern edge of the Atacama Desert in Chile. And in fact, I think we also saw a rose-haired tarantula while we were there too. Beautiful.
We did,
creatures.
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
nice creatures.
I mean, there were spiders and stuff like that everywhere. I also saw a I think it was a sidewinder snake.
Well, I don't think so. So sidewinders typically are in North Africa. They're a Saharan snake, so they
I
wouldn't
don't
be
know.
in South America.
I don't know what it was. A pit viper. I don't know what kind of pit viper.
I don't remember that. I think I'd have been running the other way, so you must have seen that without me.
I remember we also saw I think what was it, foxes a lot up there.
Yeah, the Chileans call them Zorro, or
Yeah,
the mountain foxes. They are beautiful creatures.
yeah. Zorro is the Spanish word for fox.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember I used to speak it fluently, and then I
You-
forgot it like a dopey.
And you were very, very good. Yeah, that's a shame. Well, you have time. You have time. You'll get it back.
I talk to mom in Spanish sometimes. I think it's still in there somewhere. It's
Yeah, I
just
think it is. Yeah, well, until we left in 2016, you spoke very, very good Spanish. I don't think it will ever leave you. It just needs to come back to the forefront.
oh, I think the recording stopped. Did it? Hold on.
Uh,
Nope, I'm a liar. I'm a liar.
no, we've got a few more minutes. It still says recording, so this is good.
Yep.
The podcast is still going. Got a couple more
It
minutes.
wasn't showing on my thing, so I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, I can see it. It's good. So yeah, so we're almost done. But I just like I said, I remember we were looking at hummingbirds in the garden. And
We
this,
were, yeah. They were was it the red honeysuckle that they were on?
I can't remember. Oh, the plant, yeah. And
It
they,
was we had a trampoline right next to it as
that's
well.
right.
Where I almost broke my neck.
Yeah, several times, several times.
Um
But what you amazed me, and you were about five, and we were talking about the hummingbirds flying backwards, and I was explaining to you that hummingbirds are the only bird that can fly backwards, and what they do is they tilt their wings so that
and fly backward to push gusts of air this way.
yeah, essentially that's right, and that's because of Newton's third law: action and reaction are equal and opposite. But you said to me, because you and I were always fascinated with helicopters, and you said, is that how a helicopter can fly backwards? It tilts its rotors and it can go backwards. Well, that's exactly how a helicopter does go backwards. It tilts its rotors. So I was always amazed at that. You were like five at the time. Like, holy cow, that's a good inference. Excuse me. Okay, so
If one of the military branches doesn't offer me jets, which I'd love to fly, and they offer me helicopters like they did you, I'm gonna take
you
helicopters
should
because
take it. Yeah.
helicopters are so awesome.
Yeah, I agree. You might be a bit tall for fast jets now. You're bigger than me, so.
Well, it depends. There's I don't know if I could fit in an F-22.
Oh, I doubt
Maybe.
it.
No, maybe
No,
not. But
yeah. You're 6'5". I think you're not going to make that. So
not yet.
no,
Almost.
almost. You're very close. So look, so I think this has been a really good first podcast of having an introduction to like an Ask an Astronomer. You're the citizen scientist. I think me and Joseph would definitely like to have you back on. We talked about not just astronomy, actually, which is great. We talked about some physics, some politics, a bit of religion. We talked about biology, zoology, which is really, that's really what a true scientist does, right? They talk about all different kinds of science.
Science is just cool in every way. That's one thing that I see. I've seen like some like TED Talks and stuff of like certain scientists that specialize in some fields.
Yeah.
They only talk about that one science, and there's so many other sciences to appreciate.
That's true. But don't forget, it's difficult to become an expert even in one science. So to
That's
become an
true.
expert in multiple, that's the hard part.
Well, you don't have to become an expert to appreciate it.
No, I agree entirely. But if you're going to give a TED talk or like Mr. Joseph and I, do these Astraveo podcasts.
Well, you guys have doctorates.
Yeah, well, Joseph's doing his doctorate. He's going to be a doctor within a year, I think. Yeah, and Joseph's a very smart cookie. So yeah, what we try to do is we try to give opinions about astronomy based on knowledge and fact. We try not to speculate and spitball too much.
Yeah,
that's what makes it difficult. You can't be an expert in everything, right?
I mean, astronomy is extremely useful. Almost like I'd say, like people are always like, "Oh, astronauts, their job is so difficult." I think astronomy is just as important as being an astronaut because with astronomy, without astronomy, astronauts would have no clue where they're going or like whatever. So I think every science has a way of impacting the other.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And a lot of it's founded on mathematics, by the way. All right, Mr. Benjamin, we're going to call it a day. But me and Mr. Joseph, we'd definitely like to have you back on. Hopefully, with if Joseph's
I'd love to be back on.
Yeah, no, this has been really interesting. And do talk to your friends about science. And we'll be on soon. Okay, je t'aime beaucoup. I love that. Okay, je t'aime. Bisous, bisous. Ciao, bye.
Bisous, bisous. Ciao, bye.